Hello. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the workshop on solar energy access for universal, solar energy for universal energy access. Uh, Access to reliable and affordable energy remains a significant challenge, particularly in developing regions worldwide. The need for this energy to be carbon-free is an additional challenge. Despite progress, a substantial portion of the global population still needs access to electricity and clean cooking facilities. To address this pressing issue, the International Solar Alliance has developed a comprehensive roadmap centered around solar energy solutions. By leveraging solar's technical, financial, climate action, and social benefits combined with battery storage, the ISA aims to achieve universal energy access by 2030, as outlined in the Sustainable Development Goal. In today's session, we will address some of these issues with special remarks by our dignitaries and discussions on 2 themes and release of 3 important reports. We will also be announcing the winners of the International Solar Alliance's Solar X Startup Challenge. To begin the program, may I invite Secretary of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, Mr. Bhupinder Singh Bhalla, Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General of International Solar Alliance, Ms. Damilola Ogunbi, the CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and Co-Chair for UN Energy, Mr. Puneet Kumar Goel, Honorable Chief Secretary of the Government of Goa, may I request the dignitaries to begin by lighting the lamp, please. Thank you, sir. May I invite Dr. Mathur to deliver the welcome address?
Thank you, Nikhil. Mr. Bhalla, Secretary Bhalla, Damilola, Puneet, all friends for a long time who are here in the audience, as well as new friends. Welcome. We are delighted to welcome you all to this session on solar energy for universal energy access. Together with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, together with the organization Sustainable Energy for All that Damilola heads, together with the Center for Energy Environment and Water, CEEW. We are delighted that this has come to the fruition of saying how is it that we'll move ahead and provide energy access to all who don't have it right now. We all signed the 2015 Paris Agreement, but we are still quite some distance away from ensuring that everybody has access to energy, both for lighting and, more importantly, lots of people don't have access for cooking either. There are lots of plans to see how we reach 100% energy access by 2030. But given the current grid extension programs that are there, we see that about 660 million people would be left behind without electricity by 2030. This is truly troubling. While we have made significant progress till date, clearly we will need to change our strategy if we need to meet the universal energy access goal. Based on ISA's analysis, and the report will be launched today, we see that grid extension is very expensive if you have to go beyond 10 to 15 kilometers. And it is cheaper to provide electricity through solar and batteries together. In other words, solar mini grids. This, we believe, has the potential to completely transform the rural countryside. According to our analysis, approximately 60% of the unelectrified population can be best suited for electrification through the solar-based mini grids. About 30% through grid extensions, because there are people living in the 10 to 15 kilometers that a grid extension is viable, and the remaining 10% through various kinds of standalone renewable energy solutions, the solar lighting solutions that we talk about. This is typically in areas where population is scarce, population densities are low, and consequently it makes sense to provide solar home lighting systems rather than extending either the grid or even setting up a mini grid. We understand that sustainable business models for rural mini grids occur. We would like a discussion on the kinds of regulations that can pull in investment. We see that government investments across the world are getting more and more difficult because most governments have borrowed till here, and therefore there's no space for sovereign lending. We need the private sector, the efficiencies that they provide, the kind of services that they provide. But we need to have a regulatory framework that allows the investors to ensure that they are able to provide services and to ensure that they're able to get returns on their investment. Today, we will also be releasing the names of the 20 winners of the SolarX Startup Challenge. We are delighted that we are here at this stage where we are now ready to identify the startups who can be then the deliverers of these smaller solar energy solutions across the space. And the first part of this really focuses on Africa. We will introduce these winners to you as the session goes along. We also want to say how delighted we are to be in Goa. And I want to particularly thank Dr. Puneet Goyal, the Chief Secretary of Goa. He has a PhD, by the way, in wind energy. And it's a very technical PhD, so you better be careful about him. He's a man who understands this area extremely well. And I'm very sure that our perspectives together would help us frame the way we move ahead. I would welcome to enter into a discussion today and later into how do we move ahead and ensure that the SDG 7 for universal energy access is actually met, largely powered by solar energy. Again, I welcome you all to this workshop. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, sir. May I request Ms. Damilola Ogunbi to deliver the inaugural address.
Dear Secretaries of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and the Ministry of Power, Mr. Joint Secretary of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, my dear friends from ISA and my brother, and the CEEW, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to join you today. There's some very powerful words that was just said right there, because it was about my continent, Africa, of which I hold so strongly that solar is the solution, and paving the way for true South-South collaboration can now allow us to develop Africa and also develop India at the same time. Driven by a strong business case and falling costs, solar energy progressed remarkably over the last decade to become the preferred power source for many countries. Solar energy lies at the heart of the clean energy transition by offering a democratic and economically viable answer to energy security and climate concerns. Solar energy has demonstrated the ability to reach the most remotest and the most vulnerable populations, and continues to create new opportunities for sustainable livelihoods for millions of people working in various solar value chains. Estimates suggest the cumulative solar PV capacity is expected to reach over 2,350 gigawatts by 2027, surpassing hydropower, natural gas, and coal to become the largest installed source of electricity capacity worldwide. Moreover, solar mini-grids are expected to power 500 million people by 2030, and I'm glad we have William for Huff there, who are really driving the way on solar mini-grids, especially in Africa. These predicted figures point to the fact that solar PV solutions provide the greatest, quickest impact for expanding electricity access to our ability to reach the last mile. Ladies and gentlemen, in order for us to ensure that we achieve this projected growth and the socio-economic impacts, allow me to highlight two areas that I see have the greatest potential for impact. First, we urgently need a massive and more equitable scale-up of investment in solar energy. At the moment, investments are concentrated in developed countries and emerging economies. Finance and investments must also be deployed to develop the abundant solar resources in sub-Saharan Africa, South and Southeast Asia, and Latin America and the Caribbean regions, who are now lagging behind. For example, to achieve universal access by 2030, around 217,000 mini-grids are required, with an investment of at least $127 billion needed to be installed across the globe. The large chunk of this investment must be directed to underserved communities in remote and isolated areas. Without support, we would leave people behind. 15,000 businesses every month. These figures are important because when I started, we were looking at the first 10 solar connections. We were celebrating every time we got to 100 connections. I wanted to stress this point because it is very important because it also includes the role of women in this case. This is one opportunity that you see women as power with men, especially in terms of earning capacity as well, but leading in education with proper, leading the charge with proper education. So back to next week. I think it is important that how we go with the Nigerian policies because we have so many great regulations that shows what will happen when the grid got there. We also made sure that the equipment that was installed was compatible with the grid, and there could be a handshake between the mini grid developer and the eventual utility. These things are really, really important when you're trying to drive investment. I just wanted to end by saying that we, as we went before, are committed to driving progress. We have a program, the Universal Integrated Energy Cloud, that showcase clearly when you say you have an unserved population. Where are this unserved population on a geospatial level? What is their ability to pay? What is their willingness to pay? And what are the other things we can use in terms of productive uses in that community to make sure the mini grid becomes viable? Because we can't live in a subsidized environment forever. So thank you all very much. We must coordinate our efforts, and I would like to especially thank ISA for being that global voice for the developing countries to stress the importance of solar energy in developing the people and the communities that we all love. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. May I request Dr. Puneet Golan to deliver a special address?
Distinguished guests of the dais, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to be part of the deliberations today in the workshop on solar energy for universal access. Dr. Mathur, he stated in his opening remarks that the solar mini grids
ऑडियो में कुछ
with
प्रॉब्लम है क्या
battery
क्या आ रहा है
storage
ऑडियो में
will
क्या
be one of
लोगों
the
को
best
क्लैरिटी नहीं
options
आ रही है
for
क्लियरली समझ में
achieving
नहीं आ रहा जो सामने
universal
सुन जो ऑडियो
energy access.
इनको आ रहा है वही आ रहा है मेरे को
We all know that solar mini grids they have many advantages. There is no TNT loss. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions. It can totally
ऑडियो एकदम
eliminate
क्रिस्प है
DG
क्या
sets,
सही है
particularly in far-flung areas where
क्या
the
सही है
cost of carrying fossil fuels is plants. At that time, the cost was
provide the least cost electricity access to the unserved and the underserved populations globally. Solar can also be deployed at different scales, ranging from large utility scale projects to small mini grids and solar home systems. Again, what my preceding speakers mentioned, to suit local needs. India has recognized the potential of solar energy to meet its own ambitious renewable energy installed capacity targets by 2030. And the sector has grown rapidly in recent years. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has supported the solar energy sector in India for over 3 decades, with our first off-grid applications program launched in 1992. Since then, we have come a long way. Solar energy in India has gone far beyond off-grid applications with the development of significant grid-connected solar capacity. Major initiatives of the ministry, like the National Solar Mission, the development of solar parks and the ultra mega solar power projects program, the grid-connected solar rooftop program, and the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Uthan Mahabhiyan PM Kusum scheme have helped the scale up of solar energy across various applications in India. The steady support provided to the solar sector has resulted in its rapid growth and development. Overall, India has achieved over around 68 gigawatt of solar installations as of May 2023, including 2.4 gigawatt of off-grid solar capacity. India is now planning to build on its achievements in the solar sector and is targeting the development of a domestic solar manufacturing capacity chain to improve our energy security and support the deployment of over 290 gigawatt of solar by 2030. As Mr. Goel mentioned, he was suggesting that we should also focus on solar manufacturing, just for the benefit of this audience. We currently have about 27 gigawatt of solar module capacity in India, supported by around 6 or 7 gigawatt of solar cell manufacturing capacity. But we have a very ambitious program of PLI. We have a production linked incentive scheme which has been rolled out and which has been awarded, and the projects are underway. I mean, our estimate is that, of course, PLI would add at least 48 gigawatts. That's what they're supposed to be committed to, 48 gigawatts of solar module manufacturing capacity, apart from what is already there. And not only that, most of these companies are planning to add much more than what has been awarded to them. So our estimate is, and I think it's a very robust estimate, that we should get about 100 gigawatt of solar module manufacturing capacity per annum by 2026. I think that should make India not only self-sufficient in solar manufacturing for our solar needs, but also enable us to export a significant part of our output. And we are quite confident of achieving that number. So as a result, solar is set to play a key role in India's ambitions to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. India has seen rapid progress in terms of electricity access over the past 3 decades, and we have significantly improved our capabilities to meet the electricity requirements of our economy. This would not have been possible without the robust and timely policy interventions introduced by the government, the development of an adaptive electrification strategy, a strong policy framework, and a variety of schemes such as the Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana, you must have heard about it, Saubhagya, and the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana has led to the widespread deployment of electricity access solutions across the country. Solar has played a pivotal role in ensuring last mile electricity access, especially to the rural communities in India. Off-grid solar energy products, along with mini grids and microgrids, have helped connect thousands of people with reliable supply of electricity. This was complemented with grid expansion and densification, where solar has been playing an increasingly important role with its increasing share in the country's overall generation mix. with significant expertise and experience in tackling the electricity access challenge, India co-founded the International Solar Alliance so as to help other countries requiring assistance in achieving the goal of universal energy access. We are just releasing the report on the roadmap of solar energy for universal energy access, which has been developed by ISA under the India's G20 presidency. And we aim to showcase from this report how solar energy in its various configurations can play a key role in achieving electricity access and providing socio-economic benefits in countries around the world. The report also identifies the current barriers hindering the electricity access efforts, the specific interventions needed, and the way G20 as a forum can be used to provide scale to these interventions. The roadmap identified in the report can help provide a strong foundation upon which countries, partner organizations, and other stakeholders can collaborate to devise suitable mechanisms to advance this ambition. By combining the technical expertise of various intergovernment organizations, including the International Solar Alliance, and with the resources and experience of the G20 nations, I am certain that the world can achieve the target of universal energy access by 2030. In the end, I thank all the esteemed participants for joining this session today, and I look forward to constructive deliberations during the entire sessions and inputs from what you discuss on how we can better address the energy access challenge. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the work being done by the Government of India. We will now move on to release of 3 reports. The first is by International Solar Alliance. One of the ways through which the ISA supports its member countries is by producing high-quality data-based reports annually. Last year, ISA released reports on technology, investments, and markets in the solar industry, and a report on green hydrogen. Today, the ISA is here with a report on a roadmap for universalizing energy access through solar mini-grids. May I request the dignitaries on the dais to release the report. Some of these reports are available outside and also on the ISA website. We have 2 reports produced by World Resources Institute India, and I request Mr. Madhav Pai, CEO of WRI India, and the authors of the 2 reports to come on the dais. The first report is on supporting the energy transition by addressing technology gaps of electrolyzers, and the second on accelerating the production and use of green hydrogen. The first report reviews the progress and current state of play for hydrogen production and corresponding electrolyzer technologies, and proposes recommendations for addressing technology challenges and exploring collaboration opportunities among G20 countries through synchronized policy action. The second report focuses on 3 key aspects that G20 nations should prioritize to establish and accelerate the adoption of green hydrogen. The primary focus areas identified in this report include, number 1, international supply chains for green hydrogen, including production, transport, and storage, and end-use applications. Number 2, establishing consensus on a standardized framework for classification of hydrogen from various production pathways. And 3, promoting collaborative research, development, and innovation through ongoing multilateral collaboration platforms to drive technological advancements. Thank you. The International Solar Alliance is working with its member countries to achieve 100% electricity access through large-scale penetration of solar mini-grid initiatives. A major initiative taken by ISA is to promote entrepreneurship. Towards this, the SolarX Startup Challenge is geared to help accelerate solar deployment. More about it in this video.
The International Solar Alliance has been delighted to launch the SolarX Startup Challenge. We are looking at identifying people across 10 problem statement areas and focus on those startups which have followed innovative business models in order to build their growth.
The SolarX Startup Challenge has successfully concluded its first edition dedicated to the Africa region. The top 20 ideas will be awarded a cash prize each for their solutions and scalability. The winning startups will receive extensive support from the International Solar Alliance, Invest India, and other partner organizations. They will benefit from mentorship programs, investor connections, and market access programs.
The SolarX Startup Challenge was launched for the African leg in 2022. This year, we received a tremendous response from all ISA member countries in Africa, and I must thank all the startups for showing their interest in the SolarX Startup Challenge. We received 180 applicants from countries such as Ghana, Togo, Egypt, Morocco, Mauritius, Nigeria, and the likes.
The capacity building workshops focused on sensitizing startups, innovators, and ecosystem stakeholders in Africa about the opportunity presented by this program, while also sharing expertise in the solar energy domain.
Energrow is a microfinance company that helps rural communities afford carpentry equipment, welding equipment, all sorts of different income generating tools that people can use that also use electricity to help them earn more money, to help the energy companies earn more money, and then we make money as a financier as well. Our model is new. We're the only company on the continent that is doing this.
Normally, solar developers struggle to find funding and to create standard legal contracts. We give them access to a global market, and we use standardized smart contracts. Solar investors also exist on the other side, but normally there are big banks of funds, and generally they're locked in for 20 years. We make this investment liquid and open to all, and solar cells are always tradable.
Our innovative solution combines the use of solar power with other applications to save the land and to boost smallholder family income.
Our carts are generally modified to suit the client's wants and needs. All the carts manufactured by Musana come with 1 to 2 solar lights depending on the model and a blue flame gas cooker. This is the direct approach we have chosen to take towards promoting the use of sustainable energy whilst reducing our overall impact on the environment.
The services and products that Photons Energy Limited is providing aims at solving a number of problems, which include the technical and financial innovations that aims at accelerating the deployment of off-grid energy systems. So such systems aims at bringing energy to those areas, but also replacing the use of diesel generators or other sources of energy which are not environmentally friendly.
The Sulfur Powerflow 100 is a reliable and sustainable solar generator that offers clean energy solutions. With a 300-watt solar panel and a 1,280 kilowatts battery, it efficiently harnesses and stores solar energy for later use. SALFA aims to make solar energy accessible to underserved communities in Nigeria.
We built an AI model that ensures that any match that is made is completely data-driven. This works with our platform. Customers fill out a survey and they get instantly emailed the options for them, and then they connect it to an energy provider.
We've developed patented systems to improve immunization supply chains. Our flagship product, Embolio, is a portable medical-grade refrigeration system for the last-mile delivery of vaccines and other thermally sensitive biologicals.
The Smart Buddha, an environmental control device that monitors and automatically maintains the conditions at optimal levels based on the age of chicks. The processor determines whether to turn on or off a heat source. So based on the condition, whether it's cold, it will turn it on, whether it's hot, it will turn it off. We also have incorporated SMS, sending you alerts whenever things are horribly wrong. With these systems, farmers gain benefits such as increased growth rate, reduced mortalities, reduced death rates, and above all, reduced farming stress, which leads to peace of mind.
We have created the first ever solar cooking boiler to replace these traditional, expensive firewood boilers in the Kenyan schools. As you can see on this side, there's our stove. So you can follow me to this stove. And allow these schools to cook using solar energy. And thus, will replace firewood. So this stove is very efficient and it's very affordable. As you can see, this is the innovation around the stove because we're able to tap the sun's energy using our solar collectors. And using this sun, we're able to store that heat energy in these pipes. And thereafter, this energy will be used to provide heat in these kitchens.
To bridge the cold chain gap, we manufacture and supply affordable solar-powered freezers, which enables the small-scale fishers to effectively deal with the huge challenge of post-harvest fish losses by extending the shelf life of their fish harvest. We offer our freezers on a lease-to-own payment model, which makes it affordable and sustainable to the low-earning small-scale fishers. We have also introduced Kuza Freezer Cold Box, which is a last-mile cold storage solution that enables the fisher folks to deliver their fresh fish to the market from remote places. We have built an IoT technology solution which enables us to remotely monitor our products, hence improving on service quality.
Vigilance, which aims to revolutionize the solar power industry by offering comprehensive services through an AI-enabled platform specifically for solar plant owners, developers, and investors. The platform facilitates the democratization of solar modules by providing data analysis, continuous monitoring, data collection, storing, and appropriate actionable methodologies at end of life.
With Urban Greens, I have developed a very efficient model with high scalability potential for the productive use of energy using solar PV. The highly standardized aquaponics urban farming systems and corresponding business model are designed to see the deployment of thousands of these systems in the greater Kampala area and will have tremendous potential to be replicated in other urban areas as well.
Bako Motors have developed and manufactured the first electric vehicles powered by solar energy in Africa. We have created something different, a car charging itself, 350 kilometers of free charging tank to photovoltaic solar cells. It can be fully charged within 3 hours from the domestic source.
ACS Group has been delighted to develop from scratch a product, a system that we call as a farm, which is an IoT-based system that helps farmers to optimally use agricultural inputs such as water and fertilizers. It's composed of two parts, a hardware part and a software part. These devices that are installed into the farm gather and collect all the data, send it to the cloud where it is analyzed and processed and displayed on a web application or a mobile application.
We are using highly versatile inverters that can manage up to 4 energy sources. These inverters are able to accommodate 4 energy sources, including solar, grid, generator if it's available, and the batteries. And they're able to transition between all these energy sources seamlessly and dynamically in such a way that the freezers will never experience an interruption in power supply.
GreenSyn provides digitally managed pay-as-you-go enabled solar solutions. This innovation payment technology leverages the existing national telecommunication infrastructure to provide affordable energy access to vast number of low-income households and small business while overcoming the barriers of limited or absent grid access and affordability. Our products allow customers to make small, regular, mobile phone-based payments installments while owning their own solar systems.
Simply put, we assemble and distribute different types of solar systems with a pay-go financing model. Solar was able to set up shop in 5 regions of Ethiopia. The company has delivered services through partnerships with organizations such as rural SMEs, international aid, and refugee camps.
Your Nation is a developer and manufacturer of innovative renewable energy solutions that are providing decentralized infrastructure solutions that can provide both of clean electricity and safe water to the less served communities. Here we are at one of our live boxes in a farm, and the live box is providing water for irrigation, powering a submersible pump, also desalinating water only from solar for drinking, domestic use, and also for livestock and poultry purposes.
Our innovation seeks to provide a smart solution with the introduction of a mechanized water pumping station, and to also help electrify the entire community of these female farmers. This innovation will serve as a great impact to these female farmers because they will be able to adapt smart farming practices which are environmentally friendly.
So based on our big system off-grid box, we miniaturized it to get this off-grid box mini, which is a all-in system with water purification and solar power. So the raw water goes inside here, gets purified by ultrafiltration membranes like this one, and ultraviolet light to give you safe and transparent water. We're very excited about this new technology and the possibility it can unleash in saving the planet.
Let me thank all the startups and especially ISA's member countries in Africa for showing their interest and making this leg of the SolarX Startup Challenge a huge success.
I hope that some of these become the Amazons of tomorrow in providing solar services to the people that we are talking about. We look forward to building up startups and therefore building up an ecosystem within which a large and larger number of these startups start providing solar services and therefore build up the supply of energy across the continent through solar applications.
May I request Dr. Mathur to announce the winners?
Thank you, colleagues. I must say the last, 6 months has been quite a challenge. But it was also exhilarating because one, we learned of the amazing kinds of startups that have occurred in Africa. See, the most important issue, and I congratulate Damilola for starting all of this, because you need to figure out what is needed. What do people need? You need to figure out what are the business models that are suitable to the local audience. You need to figure out what are the technologies that they're willing to pay for, or rather what are the services that they're willing to pay for. It is that which will help upscaling. I heard what Dr. Puneet Goyal mentioned about capacity. There's no point in building up a program and then facing the problems of capacity as he did. We learned from it. And therefore, we need to identify the service providers upfront as we go ahead with the solar supply. We need to, at the same time, create the solar demand. This is what these organizations have done. What we did was that at Sharm el-Sheikh COP last year, we announced this program. The ISA Assembly in October last year had approved it. We were delighted to have great partners, Invest India, the World Investment, why don't you come up? The World Investment Promotion Council. We have somebody from Gogla as well. Yes, come on. AMDA. AMDA is the African Mini Grids Association. What all of these companies did, all of these organizations did, was then seek and actively promote invitations for this initiative. As you know, we were looking at 20 winners in 10 problem areas. And I'll talk about those problem areas in half a minute. But we received 182 applications, 182. We were going for 20, which tells you of the vibrant market that there is within Africa. We looked then to various kinds of ways, how long had they been in existence, which countries were they were from, and so on. And based on that, we identified first 50, and then those 50 got into 20. These 20 are the people you see in front of you. And what I would like to do is to introduce them to you one by one, and I would request the winners to wave their hands just to show that they are who they are, and so that all of you also know them. We have Musana Cards. Well, that's problem statement 1, which is focusing on the technical and financial innovations to accelerate the deployment of off-grid solar applications, mini grids, solar home systems, and so on. And the 2 winners are Musana Cards from Uganda. There you are. And Hello Solar Technology from Ethiopia. There you are. Then we have problem statement 2, which looks at the development of efficient models, so there's energy efficiency in as well, and a high scalability potential and enhanced cost competitiveness for the productive use of solar energy. And the winners are Kusa Coolers. There you are, yes. And EcoBora. I note both of them are from Kenya. Then we have problem statement 3, which is looking at technical and or business models, focusing on innovation that bring down the cost to support grid integration of rooftop solar systems. So these are grid integrated rooftop solar systems. And the 2 winners are Centennial Power. There you are. And Centennial Power is based in Rwanda. And InnoNeat Solutions from Kenya. Then we have problem statement 4, which combines solar with other applications. We had given the example of agriculture, but it could be any applications which save land and boost smallholder family incomes. And the 2 winners are Urban Greens. Yeah, there you are. And the STES Group as well. There they are. Then we have problem statement 5, where we are looking at manufacturing innovations to lower the cost or improve the efficiency and efficacy of solar or ancillary equipment. And the winners are Green Scene Energy based in Ethiopia. There you are. And Salfa Energy Limited from Nigeria. There you are. Wonderful to have you all with us. Then number 6, innovative business models of solar power for emerging uses such as e-mobility, green hydrogen, etc. And the 2 winners are Off-Grid Box Rwanda. There they are. And Bako Motors, a Tunisian startup on electric mobility that you saw. Then we have problem statement 7 on the development of tools based on artificial intelligence, IoT, etc., which improve the manufacturing and deployment or integration of solar energy systems. And the two winners are Arenifu Technologies from Kenya and Moment, which is a South African community-based organization. Then we look at problem statement 8, the development of an ecosystem in terms of manufacturing of balance of system components such as high efficiency inverters. And the two winners are Noor Nation and Esako Global Nigeria Limited, also known as A6GNL. There you are. And finally, problem statement 9 is development of high efficiency DC pumps with smart controllers having the potential for scalability and practical business models for dissemination. And the two winners are Photons Energy Limited from Tanzania and Northlight Solar Limited from Ghana. There you are. And finally, number 10, services or software which help in land mapping. We had given the example of drones, but it could be anything. And we have Uvana Energy from Nigeria and EG Platforms Limited from Uganda. May I, on behalf of all of you, congratulate them. And as I said in the video, I look forward to each of them becoming the Amazons of tomorrow in serving energy needs through solar energy to all of Africa and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. May I request Pragya from International Solar Alliance to present a token of appreciation to dignitaries on the dais. Mr. Bhalla, Secretary, Government of India. Dr. Goyal. Ms. Ogdenby. Dr. Mathur. Thank you, dignitaries. We will now move on to the panel discussion on the first theme of universal energy access through solar mini-grids. Universal energy access is an urgent priority to promote sustainable development and improve the lives of millions worldwide. We have solutions such as solar mini-grids and standalone renewable energy solutions. To discuss some of these issues, we have a panel. But before I invite the panel on stage, I will request Mr. Ramesh Kumar, Chief of Unit of Programs at ISA, to make a presentation on the status, business models, case studies, opportunities in solar mini-grids.
Very good morning. I think we are still in the hangover of the first session. Pragya, can you just take the seat that the next session will start? So we are just starting the first session panel. Before panel discussion, I will be giving a short presentation on the roadmap report which ISA has prepared. It will be very brief so that we have more discussions on that. This just to put the context and where do we stand in terms of universal energy access. So today, if the electricity access in the world over, if we see it has reached kind of 91%, and still 675 million people don't have the electricity as on the data as on 2021. So if we look at the path of SDG 7, especially the SDG 7.1, which is the 100% access to electricity by 2030, with the current progress, we may be reaching only 92%. That's what the trends are showing. So still, that means by 2030, if we adopt the same process as of now, we may be still having 660 million people not having electricity. So this is very alarming, which we already talked about it. That means we need to accelerate the whole process, or we need to see how directionally the changes are required in our approach. So we were just looking at what is that the countries are adopting to see the reaching the universal energy access. It's predominantly still the countries are looking at extending the grid to the last mile or to the remotest possible. And this is making a lot of issues in terms of a lot of challenges it is undergoing. So one, in terms of there is a lot of delays in planning and implementation of such grid extension to the very rural areas. That's number one. Secondly, many of the areas or terrains are not supportive to extend the grids. Third, it's uneconomical to do it in a larger distance to reach a smaller population of the people. Again, there is a significant cost in terms of operation and maintenance of extending the grids extended to the rural areas. Finally, we have been seeing this, it is suboptimally utilized in many of the villages or where the grid is already extended. So it's a low level of the utilization of such grids. So what many of the countries are looking at is as a stopgap arrangement, they are looking at as the mini grids and mainly by the diesel mini grids to see as a stopgap arrangement. And as a result, which is not at all a desirable thing, which have the pollution issues as well as the global warming issues. So this is the current conditions which we have seen mainly on the approaches of many of the countries. Coming to solar and the emerging RE solutions, we are seeing that, and it's a fact that, and it's a I need not deliberate on that much. Solar, along with the battery and the rooftop, and all these applications and other DRE solutions are many advantages, which is like including which is of course climate friendly. There is a technological maturity or the developments happening in a very fast manner, the modularity, flexibility, and the reducing cost trends, a possibility of multiple business models, and localized generation. So these are the important things which all these emerging solutions which is already scaling up. So we did a techno-commercial study of these grids, and it's seen that as the main parameters which we have seen, the places which are not connected, how far it is away from the national grids, and secondly, how the population density is there. Considering these two factors, it is a kind of seen from our analysis saying that as we move away from the grids, and so it's better to switch over to the solar mini grids or with battery rather than extending the grid to those areas. And if the density is below 400 people per square kilometer, probably in such areas we may have to go for standalone system where the mini grids also may not be a cost optimal solution. So this is what our important analysis coming out of this report. So which points out to the fact that it's better not to fully thinking of extending the grid, which are not connected now, rather than we should have a 3 segments of approach, which are the places which are within 15 kilometers should be given the power through the grid extension, and beyond that it should be the mini grids. And in case even for mini grids areas or beyond the national grid, and also having very low density of the people, much less than 400, and we may be requiring to the distributed solutions or standalone system. Why this is not happening? This is very important slide which we have seen. Many of the countries doesn't have a clear policy of solar or solar mini grids. And they use it as a stopgap arrangement. And secondly, we also see that many of the countries written or unwritten rules which says they should match with the grid power, which may not be possible in the current conditions. So this is the policy and regulatory issue which is most important. And secondly, many of the mini grids are too much dependent on grant support, which is not sustainable, and it also amounts to inefficient design of the project. Third, of course, the capacity building and the technical competence which are required to be scaled up. So these are the key issues which is actually why the mini grids are not scaling in many of the countries. But now there are many emerging good solutions which are coming out. In fact, we will be deliberating on that, and many of the William Brand and Mr. Gupta, you people are here. We'll be talking about this very self-sustainable business model. That's what is very promising. I think we have analyzed many of these business model suiting to various conditions in our report, and some of them are listed here, which gives a lot of interesting ideas and a confidence that this will be slowly the dependence on the grant support can be reduced. So what we just saw, these are the very important factors which has led into the important what you call the self-sustainable model. I've tried to capture all the important issues. So it's in terms of smart project structuring and innovative business models. Uses of technology. Use of technology is very, very important they have used in their design of this solar mini grids. And I think more importantly, they have actually simulated a lot of what you call economic activities in those villages, which is very, very important, and also empowering the women and the inclusion of the local people, integrating all sources. I mean, all these things are led to very good business model. I think we need to support these business models across the countries where it is not there. I think these are the important findings of ISA's report. So finally, just to sum up this technology deployment, I think the grid extension should be restricted to within 15 kilometers, whichever country having 15 to 20 kilometers kind of, it should be restricted to that, the grid extension process. Beyond, then they should promote the solar mini grids. And such solar mini grids also require very good business models as well as smart structuring. And the areas which are much beyond where the density is very low, probably the DRE is the solution, or solar-based solutions, standalone system may be useful there. In terms of policy and regulatory framework, the countries should definitely promote this innovative business and self-sustainable business model and boost the investor confidence. We need to create enabling ecosystem to attract private investment by creating the to create the access to the affordable finance, and also create the payment guarantee system and the other risk mitigations, so that the private investors are much more confident to invest in this sustainable business model. Finally, capacity building, which is very important, both institutional capacity as well as of the skill of the people, is very important to achieve. So these are the 4 sets of our recommendation, which is in the part of the our report. I think we will have more deliberations now on these business models and all these things, so that I think there is a concerted efforts required by all the stakeholders to encourage this, and we need to support the countries to bring out such regulations, as well as to the other institution to set up such facilities which can promote private investment in solar mini grids. So what we see, almost 60% can be achieved through the mini grids. About 30% of the left out population can still be accessed through the grid extension, and maybe about 10-11% still may require high support for achieving this universal energy access. So with that, let me conclude, and I would also take this opportunity to compliment the entire team of ISA and KPMG who have supported us. Mr. R.K. Jain, Mr. Sudhanshu, and the whole team of KPMG were there. They have worked a lot to come out with these projects. I also use this opportunity to congratulate them. Many thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite the panel to take on the dais Mr. William Brent, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Husk Power, Mr. Manoj Gupta, Chief Executive Officer of Tata Power Renewable Microgrid, Dr. Freywort Waldehana, former minister from Republic of Ethiopia and now professor of Addis Ababa University, Mr. Abu Bakr Ali Dabshima, who is the national focal point of Nigeria for International Solar Alliance, Mr. Harsh Thakkar, Director, Emerging Technologies, Customized Energy Solutions, and our moderator from Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Mr. Dilip Nigam. I will now hand over to Mr. Nigam.
Thank you very much, first of all, to ISA to organize this conference and inviting me to moderate this particular session. Friends, as you know, the grid-connected solar power development has always been getting attraction worldwide, and we have done wonders across the globe. But the off-grid solar applications in decentralized manner is also equally important, and as a matter of fact, in some cases it is more important. According to some reports, 91% of the world population only has access to grid scale electricity, and the remaining 9% of the population has no access to the grid. And the reliability and quality of electricity supplied to them is still a rising concern, and especially in last few years. As Dr. Mathur mentioned this morning, that IA has estimated, and Ramesh also included in his presentation, that 660 million people will still lack the electricity, grid quality electricity by the year 2030, the year we have set all the sustainable development goals. Well, as a matter of fact, DRE, the distributed renewable and particularly solar applications, offer faster and more cost-effective solutions of the requirement because of their suitability to the local resource availability, number one. Number two, they don't need much bigger transmission systems and therefore reduce the losses also. Let me touch what we in the ministry and as such India has done. We started these things actually right from the beginning in early 80s. But when the National Solar Mission in 2010 was introduced, we had a separate target of 2000 megawatt off-grid decentralized applications to be done by 2022. And I would feel happy to inform that we have installed around 2.3 gigawatt of distributed solar application in terms of solar lights, solar home lights, solar lamps, etc. Around 12 million such systems have been done. If I go back of early 80s, that time also we had started off-grid applications, but the major constant, I still say, it has been mentioned in Dr. Mathur's discussions and also in Ramesh's presentation, the biggest challenge has been the storage. You know what we say, some of you may be knowing that ministry had a program called RVE, Rural Village Electrification, wherein we were trying to reach to the villages which were not electrified through solar applications. And in some cases, those villages were not ready to accept our solutions because of the fact they were afraid that if this electricity comes to us, which is only available during few hours during the day, then our main electricity which comes through those wires may not come to us because we will be declared as electrified. So that was why the fear was that we did not have adequate storage because it is not neither through grid nor through battery storage. Battery storage was so expensive. So now with decreasing cost of battery storage, I'm sure the acceptance of distributed systems will be much higher. And ISA is doing wonderful work. You know, actually I was aware, but after seeing their presentation, etc., especially the African countries, which they have, the efforts they have done is definitely wonderful. They have another program called Solarization of Agricultural Sector for Resilient Food Supply, which they are going to have another discussion. I'm sure you people, the panelists who have been working in different sectors, will also have a lot of experience in this sector. So let's now get the advantage of their rich experience. Let me begin with one of the important panelists, Mr. William Brandt, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Husk Power. You know, Husk Power is one of the company, basically based in USA, I believe, and they have their operations in India also. They have done very good work. So, Mr. Brandt, you know, for such off-grid or decentralized applications, the tariff has always been an issue because of the small scales and other related issues. The costs are high. So that is one major issue what I think. So what do you think, what could be the necessary steps we should, or now actually this is international forum, so what those countries should take to reduce the tariff, and what are the, you in your present position, I have read online, you have tried and very successfully used very unique business model. So what are the business models you suggest for promotion of the off-grid applications?
Thank you so much. First, let me thank the ISA and MNRE for hosting this important conversation, and Dr. Nigam for moderating. Husk Power is based in the U.S. We proudly were founded in India 15 years ago next month, in August 2008. I am happy to represent over 400 colleagues who are based in Patna, operating here in India, which is still our largest market. So we're very excited about our progress here and with the progress that's coming in the next few years. We've raised $40 million already We expect to raise another $100 million this quarter to really help grow the business both here in India and in sub-Saharan Africa, including Nigeria, which is our second most important market. Before I answer your questions, I would like, since we're at a forum focused on G20, I would like to convey a message which I think is important for G20 countries to keep in mind, which is that SDG 7 is universal access, but it's access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and what's often represented is the modern aspect of SDG 7. And we've spent the last decade supplying remote areas with solar home systems, Pico Solar. These are not modern energy solutions, right? They're fantastic, provide basic energy services. But if the goal agreed to by G20 and the international development community is to provide modern energy, those solutions currently do not provide modern energy. So in that sense, even though we have made tremendous progress in terms of reducing the number of people without access, the number of people without access to modern energy is still as large as it ever was, right? And I think that that's an important recognition that needs to be made by the international development community, including the G20, because unless we change the way we're investing money and working with governments, we will not achieve modern energy for all by 2030 for the 600 million who still have no access, but also the 600 million who've been given access to basic electricity over the last decade. So I think that's an important message. And I say that because you can't provide modern energy to people unless they can afford to buy modern energy, and that there is enough economic activity for them to take advantage of modern energy. And that's not just a solution that mini-grid developers can solve. That's an integrated challenge that requires the involvement of ministries of finance, ministries of agriculture, ministries of transportation, ministries of healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So there is an integrated approach to achieving modern energy to create the economic development that's needed to then absorb the solutions that we can provide. So I think that's a really important message that I'd like to make sure that the G20 hears loud and clear. In terms of your specific questions, and I'll try and answer them quickly so that others can also chime in. I think that the tariff issue is a politically sensitive one. But I would start by saying that we are judged based on the higher tariffs that we tend to charge on an unlevel playing field. The discoms here in India, the discos in Africa, they're heavily subsidized both on a CapEx and OpEx basis. We receive no subsidy here in India with our operations, so we're purely market-based solution here. We do receive some subsidy in Nigeria. But that's only purely a CapEx subsidy, and we receive no OpEx subsidy. And if you're comparing our tariff to the tariff of a distribution company, you can't do that unless you remove their operational CapEx subsidies, or at least equalize that and actually compare apples to apples. So I think it's important for everyone to recognize that just based on a cost-reflective tariff that we have to charge to recoup our investment, it's higher, it's lower than diesel generation, it's higher than the discoms, but it's only higher than the discoms because we're not subsidized, right? So I think that that's an important point to make. The way that we're bringing down tariffs is through really focusing on business model innovation, and also a very large focus on driving our levelized cost of energy down. The lower our levelized cost of energy, the more cost savings we can pass on to our customers, whether it's a household customer or a business customer. We're under 30 cents per kilowatt hour now, and we expect to get to 20 cents per kilowatt hour in the next 2 or 3 years. So we're well on our way to driving those costs down. That will allow us to continue to reduce our tariff, right, and pass that on to the customer. And the other thing I would just sort of say, besides the focus on LCOE, is what you mentioned around business model innovation. We recognized early on that you cannot build a viable business model in rural communities without addressing the whole energy ecosystem in those rural communities. And that doesn't mean just stopping at providing electricity. You can provide the electricity, but as I mentioned earlier, sometimes people can't afford, or businesses can't afford, to actually take those services, right? So you have to look at the whole ecosystem and address both supply, so the generation and transmission, but also the demand, right? And so integrating into our business model appliance sales and financing, right? So we're not only increasing demand on our generation asset, but we're also enabling our customers to grow their businesses, to have better lives at home, through fans, through TVs, whatever it may be. But the commercial machinery that we also sell and finance to our business customers is also really important to building economic development and thereby increasing our demand. And then the last thing I would say is just sort of integrating energy services into what we do. So whether that's agro-processing, whether that's e-mobility, whether that's water purification for drinking, there are a lot of energy services that we've also integrated into our business model that allows for us to provide better service to the communities that we're in, but also to improve our economic performance. So that's a lot to unpack, but thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brent. Ministry has had some programs which were closed, I think, in 2019 or so, and we are in process of bringing more some new schemes on this. So I'm sure the suggestions which you have made, I will convey to my colleagues in ministry, and some of them can be used for Indian context, and I'm sure the other countries can also use it further. Now let me move to Mr. Abu Bakr Ali. Mr. Abu Bakr Ali, you are from Nigeria, and Nigeria has had very good experience in promoting the solar mini grids. So what has been your experience of Nigeria, and how have you been able to, and what is your suggestion for other countries? What kind of policy, regulatory things which you suggest should be taken care while making a particular scheme or programs in different countries? And what are the salient features of your policies which have been successfully used in Nigeria? Some of the salient features you would like to tell us?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm happy to be here. My name is Engineer Abu Bakr Ali. I am the Director of Renewable in the Federal Ministry of Power, Nigeria, and I am the focal for the International Solar Alliance. In Nigeria, actually, we have policies and regulation that guides, implementation of solar, especially mini grids. In the mini grid space, as we are today, we have the mini grid regulation, which states that any installation that is below 100 kilowatts, that's one the investor or the state agencies will just go and implement. And anyone that is from 100 kilowatts and above, you have to get permit from the regulator in order for you to be protected, because Nigeria has been, the power sector has been privatized. The distribution and the generation is private driven. It's only the transmission that's being handled by government. So in order to protect the investment, anything from 100 kilowatts, you have to get permit from the regulator. But anyone from 1 megawatt and above, you have to get a license from the regulator before you go and implement project. And we in the Ministry of Power and the Renewable Energy Department, in order for us to achieve, electrification rates in terms of the SDG targets, as we know, Nigeria has a population of over 200 million, almost about 40% that has been electrified. 60% they have no access to electricity. That means there has to be a lot of work to be done from the government side, and there has to be investors to come in and, partake in that sector. Government alone can never do that. So in that space, government now is trying to raise the license from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts license, so that it will cover, investors will come with reasonable investment, and for them to actually recoup their investment and to cover, a lot of areas. At the same time, before we have the Electricity Act 2005, just June 9th, last month, the newly elected president now passed the Electricity Act, which now allows state government, local government, and private investors to directly come and invest in distribution and generation aspect of the electricity in Nigeria. So that Electricity Act has given that, window for private and also state governments and local government to invest in Nigeria. And what we did in the Ministry of Power and also Renewable Energy Department, for us actually to make solar to be accepted, we also set a stabilization fund of about $100 million for mini-grids, large mini-grids, projects, which in order to drive, the grid connected and large for industrial and also for domestic and productive uses. But what actually for us to drive investors and also to enhance that the policy works, we have the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy, which was approved in 2016. And in that policy, we have a vision, which is called the Vision 30-30-30. We want to generate 30 gigawatts by the year 2030 with at least 30% share of renewable. How will that happen? So on that particular vision, we have a vision template which spell out all these resources we have in terms of renewable energy and conventional power, whether gas, nuclear, hydro, and the rest. And each year we have a target that government is envisaging to achieve through private sector participation, through government intervention, through our development partners, interventions. So these are the targets we have. And for us to achieve that target, what have we actually done as Ministry and also Renewable Energy Department? Now, under the Sustainable Energy for All, Nigeria, we now have the Central Data Management System. Through the German government and European Union, what we did was, we now map the entire country for us to know where did the grid reach, how far the communities within the country are closer to the grid and far away to the grid. So we will be able to map almost about 2.9 million settlements and 3.2 million buildings. And we've now mapped almost over 60,000 kilometers of medium and low voltage line. In that aspect, covers almost about 23 states out of 36 states of the Federation, which work is ongoing. What we did there is that now we got an empirical data that is realistic, truth data on the ground, by deploying latest technology to now pick all those settlements, buildings, and also the medium voltage, that is 11 and 33 kV line, in order for us to know communities that are connected to the grid, that are at least 5, 15, 20 kilometers away to the grid, and those that are far away to the grid. And this one is for us to have electrification planning, and also to get least cost electrification, and also market intelligence for investors actually, if they want to come and invest from the computer, at the panel of their computer, they can now Google through the website www.nigeriaseforall.gov.ng. If you just Google now, you will see any community that you want. And in that community, what we did, we mapped all the productive uses, the healthcare facilities, and the settlements, as I mentioned, so that it will give you the idea. And also with the population around, we are working with the National Population Commission and Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to incorporate all this, so that at the point of your computer, anywhere before you even come, you will have idea of what the population density, what are the productive uses in that particular area, so that it will now help you to plan and develop your own business model. So these are the things that the Ministry of Power is doing. And with this new Electricity Act, we have a lot to do to encourage investors and also to relate with the state government, so that state government and local will have synergy with the federal, so that we'll have the same agenda to achieve the Vision 30-30. So at this point, these are what actually we are doing. And from the government side, what we are doing, we have the Renewable Energy Micro Utility Program. And also we have the 3D 24/7. 3D 24/7 program means you will have decentralized, digitalized, and also decarbonized feeder improvement program. Since the power sector has been privatized, and also after at the privatization, the distribution company has a 5-year development plan which they have to come with to make sure that within the 5-year development plan they have covered that area. So any area outside the 5-year development plan, through the regulation I mentioned, the private investors will come and get a place and invest. So what we did there is, through that aspect, now we deploy and also collaborate with the development partners and the donor agencies. Now we build a lot of mini grids across the country, which we through this web portal, we identify the productive use, and also just like the DG ISA mentioned, when you want to deploy site, you have to know what are the needs of the community. You just don't deploy mini grids. So the productive uses, whether there are so much interest in rice milling, grinding, or cooling system for refrigeration. Now, all this, we have to consider that before we deploy that. And the other aspect, we have another program, we call it the Alternative to Public Buildings. What we did was, is that we identified some public institutions like healthcare, like hospitals, and also government institutions, which now government deploy solar solutions like 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt to government institutions, so that they can now release some of the energies on the distribution to the distribution end, so that they now generate their own entity power, and the excess through the regulation that the regulator passed, we can now put a net meter which they can also transport, like in the night when there is no activity, or weekends when government is not operating, to the distribution companies. Even by not collecting money, they can cancel their bills that has been accumulated for over time. Government is trying to pay off utility bills for government and like military barracks and police barracks, institutions like that. So these are the policy instruments that are in place for Nigerian government to use solar potential that we have, and also to deploy mini grids to underserved area of the population. Thank you very much. And also to encourage investors into the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for a very comprehensive information. Somebody is appreciating from the audience also. Manoj, Tata Power has been doing a lot of work in the utility scale solar power development, and you are also into the mini grids, etc. Do you think? I understand it has very peculiar issues, local issues, social issues rather, in managing, operating the mini grids, etc. What is your experience and what is your takeaway? What is your suggestion for the policy makers, if you think? That is one thing which I would like to hear from you. And second thing, Tata Power is doing both grid utility and off-grid. So how do you see commercially, does it make equally good sense in doing both, or do you think as a company which one is better? Does that also has an impact in overall off-grid and mini-grid development in the country and as such globe?
Okay, thank you so much. Before I start, I think Mr. Ramesh was talking about in his last slide, saying that rural economy will depend on what are the drivers of those economy. And very true to that, energy is one of the driver. And it was rightly said by you that during the initial phase, the customers were not ready to take the grids, microgrid supply. Apprehending that, the grid will not come. That's the truth. Today, the grid has got infinite potential into supplying the power supply. But today, are the customers, the small villages, are ready to take that much of power supply? Answer is no. So extending the grid or extending the national asset to that length is highly economical. What I would be recommending that this investment, which would go probably in extending, and as Mr. Ramesh was talking about, the report says 15 kilometers is a good dimension. Beyond that, it should be decentralized setup should be made. So here, that investment could go into development of distribution renewable energy sources, and to be precise, the mini grid or the microgrid in the picture. But taking Mr. Brent's discussion forward, he also talked about the tariff. This is an important driver. But today, what we have to do is invert the pyramid and look differently. What is the end customer or the rural customer is looking forward from this mini grid or microgrid? He is neutral. He is looking at the energy. So if we look at the energy bucket or the pocket of the money which goes towards energy, we will find that he doesn't have an alternate solution. Today he is depending on diesel, which costs almost 35 to 36 rupees, to the discom supply, which is as low as 3 to 5 rupees, and in some cases 10 rupees, but then is highly subsidized. What does he have an option? The mini grids provide this option in between. And this is where I think the role of mini grid is very important. But when you go at the deployment side, the customer psychology plays a role. Like you said, the customers were not ready to take the mini grid supply, thinking that it will not come. We have, in our place, have gone ahead with selling energy efficient appliances to the customer with the thought process, they don't have much energy. Can this energy be utilized from the mini grid? And then they can do the productive job. So one of the experience what we realized when we were selling this BLDC fan, which is energy efficient 32 watt, and a typical fan at household would be almost 60 to 70 or maybe 100 wattage. The customer response was, sir, ye to bilkul acha nahi hai. And the answer was why? It doesn't make a sound. Because these technology are of a different nature, highly efficient. So the customer's usage with respect to that technology, as rightly said by Ramesh, has to be also drawn into map how the customer awareness towards the new technology and usage of new technology and demonstrating that project. In fact, when we went early days in 2020-21 to one of the district in UP called Gonda, and we were supposed to supply one of the first customer who had this old, 40 years old electric motor. We failed to supply the electricity because then that motor was tripping our microgrid. We brought in the VFD technology to run that motor. And then we demonstrated to him that microgrid is capable of supplying this power, but this power which you are consuming is guzzling energy because it's 40-year-old, inefficient, and rewounded multiple times. So as a technology, we intervene the energy efficient motors and pumps to those customers and enabling them and demonstrating through those experiences. Many customers were not ready to take our supply, saying that it will not run through. We went to the project called Demonstrate by Use. We allowed them to use the machine for 4 or 5 days. If they are satisfied, they continue to use our power supply. And 90 to 95% of time, these customers have not returned those motors and pumps. So this is where we see that handling customer and probably their need would be the answer to the solution. And as far as business operation is concerned, what we feel, we have a strategy called identify customer's pain, and this is your business gain. So when we identify customer problems, we have collaborated with the customers or the local communities in carrying out those operations. So in that particular manner, we are, as of now, successful in carrying out operation maintenance to the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you very much. Now let's move to some more African experience. Dr. Freivort Woldehana. You come from Ethiopia. I think in your country also the mini solar grids has been a good successful program. So what is your takeaway? What are your suggestions for other countries to replicate in terms of the regulatory policy measures which we as a government body should take care, number one. Number two, what are your experience in the local people? How do you deal with the local people? Are they having some specific requirement, or it is business as usual? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the ISA for giving me this opportunity to take part in this very important event on energy transition. Before going to the last questions, perhaps it might be helpful to get activities relevant to mini-grid installations. So currently we have maybe two major activities in mini-grids. The first is in part of the National Electrification Program, for which at least 35% of the population should be connected to off-grid technologies, which could be a mix of solar home systems for the deep rural areas and the rest of solar mini-grids everywhere. So that's one. Because energy access, it was very low previously, and now with combined grid and off-grid technologies, we have reached about 48–49% access. But still, the plan of the National Electrification Program is universal access, 100% by 2030. Originally, it was 2025. But due to various reasons, actually it had to be updated. So that's one. The other one is on the DREAM project. There is a project related to agriculture where solar mini-grids are supposed to be involved in irrigation purposes. Of course, there is another session on water related. But there is also very important experience. There are pilot projects and trying to exercise on different models, particularly as applied to productive use of energy, because there is irrigation, there are additional crops, and these additional crops can help subsidize the other energy components. Now, the third one could be an experience on cooperative-based mini-grids. Actually, it's still as a pilot project, and that pilot project allows, a mix of or a study of different models like cooperative and private sector, and with different modalities. The cooperatives can own the equipment and including the distribution lines, and the private sector can be allowed to perform operation and maintenance. That's one. The other one is a kind of joint venture. Both the private sector and the cooperatives can own everything and share in the form of a joint venture. So these are still under trial, and the results after this pilot experiment would be actually input to policies, a policy for the next stage. As it stands now, still the private sector engagement is really low. We can ask why, because first of all, the mini grids are risky businesses, because you are trying to install a system where the population has less income. So there is a question of affordability always compared to grid electricity. So there must be some form of building confidence for the investors, and also some form of subsidy for the users. So this is a very important, tricky business. So it's still under experiment. Other issues in the private sector engagement which are actually related to policies and regulation is the tariff. That's first is a tariff. Obviously, as I've said, there is a question of affordability. SDG 7 requires that governments provide affordable electricity, so something has to be done in order to make it affordable. So how do we do it? Still, it's an exercise through subsidy or through cross-subsidy. That's also another option where you provide energy and those with productive use can pay more to subsidize the costs for the basic services. So this is one model still under trial. The others could be just, developers should be encouraged to be engaged in those areas through different means, including, simple procedures. So far there are some procedures which may be considered lengthy from the developer's point of view, but that can be improved. That can be improved to a point where it's attractive and anyone can go in and really invest for the services. That's what I can share. Thank you very much.
Love to hear you more, but time is not permitting us. So, Mr. Harsh Thakur, I would like to know from you that what are the evolving technologies, in the sector which would, particularly the battery storage and other things which you think will help us in bringing more and more mini solar grids?
So thank you, Mr. Nigam. You have been always encouraging of the new technologies in the sector. So hello all, I'm Harsh Thakur, Director Customized Energy Solutions for Emerging Technologies. So we have been working on a lot of battery technologies and even algorithms for mini grids. And we have seen that there has been requirement for a better solution in terms of storage. So I think if we can just go slightly more in detail. So we have seen that many of these mini grids, where solar generation has been lower than what it has been on the grid-tied systems. So in grid-tied system, like we generally expect that the solar would generate like 4 to 6 units per kilowatt of solar. But in like more than like 50 mini grids that we have worked on, we have seen the energy out of solar is in range of 1 to 3 units per kilowatt of solar. Now that has been due to two reasons. One is like the economic load was not there in many of these mini grids. And secondly, even when there was economic load, end use activities were there, the batteries were not having that capacity to take in the solar generation. And that's where even after like 12 months, 18 months, the batteries were kind of getting fully charged at 9 a.m. In all these mini grids. And despite solar generation which is available, the solar generation was cutting off. So after 9 a.m. there was no generation because the day load was very less, batteries were fully charged, even they were not, but the internal resistance has gone very high. So this problem of sulfation has not been addressed properly, and I think that's where Mr. Ramesh was showing in the slide that O&M is a big challenge in mini grids. So to handle this, like one is like you either change the technology. So we have done that in many mini grids where we have looked at LFP and we have seen a good capacity retention of LFP in last 3 years of operation. So that technology has done well. It is also showing in the global statistics of the batteries installed in different mini grids. So a study done for World Bank by CES last year shows that today globally over like 40% of mini grids are going with non-lead acid technologies. And the major one is the lithium ion, and especially in lithium ion it is LFP. So it is coming as a alternative technology to the VRLA and the flooded what we have seen so far. But then the question is like there are like more than 70%, 75% assets which are still on lead acid. So do you give up on that? So the answer is I think we can deal with that. It's just that we need to have a intelligent control and O&M of these systems. And we have seen there are algorithms, and we have developed that, and we have seen this can happen. But the challenge is just not to look at the storage part of it, the chemistry part of it, but also to look at the charge controller part of it, also to look at the communication part of it, because many of this charge controller and communications are not standardized even today. I think we have been talking about these things for a long time. There have been standards in grid-connected BESS for standardization. On communication, there aren't many. I think GBT has been quite up in providing these standards for communication. So I think I think what ISA can promote here is like to look at standardization of communication in many of this mini-grid inverters and charge controller. And that's really going to help us whether we are going for, say, lead acid or lithium ion or flow batteries or hydrogen storage. So I think the control would give us a good access of how we can intelligently maneuver these technologies. But apart from that, I also want to focus a little bit on the second life batteries. So we have now been testing some of the second life batteries as well, which have like run for more than 50,000 kilometers on road, like in terms of car. And we have seen like almost 5% degradation in these batteries, which have run for almost like 50,000 kilometers. So the question is like, would you allow these batteries to run more in car and less in storage? So I think even that can be possible. What we have been seeing in the test is that in the older batteries, the IR is, internal resistance is increasing, and we would need to be mindful that we don't cross certain limits. So there have been now UL standard 1974, which now tells like how we can go for testing second life batteries for stationary applications, and that can be one of the solutions here.
Thank you, Harsh. But that will also depend upon charging and discharging frequency, many other things. So some of very good suggestions have come. I would have loved to actually reiterate all of them, but time doesn't permit me. He is standing here. So I'm sure everything will be brought in the report for the benefit of the others. On behalf of ISA and MNRE, I would like to thank all the esteemed panelists for bringing out their views. It was very useful.
Request Mr. Ramesh Kumar to present a token of appreciation to our panelists. Mr. Harsh Thakkar. Mr. Abu Bakr Ali Dabshima. Dr. Freyhevort Waldehana. Mr. Manoj Gupta. Mr. William Brent. And Mr. Dilip Nigam. Thank you. We will now move on to our next theme, which is solarization of agriculture sector for resilient food supply chain. Globally, 2.8 billion people are still looking for access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. The world falls short on its progress towards the Sustainable Development Goal 7. Household air pollution from cooking with traditional stoves and fuels is linked to nearly 4 million deaths each year since 2014. Clean cooking solution requires global attention, and ISA is looking forward to addressing such problems through sustainable and viable solutions by promoting solar-based clean cooking systems. Apart from that, inadequate food storage facilities cause deterioration before it reaches the consumer. Increased access to energy can help modernize the food chain, in particular, allowing more cold storage for products and preventing waste. Before we move on to the panel discussions, we have a video and 2 presentations. So I would request the team to run the video first.
The International Solar Alliance has initiated a number of demonstration projects with our member countries who are LDCs, least developed countries, or SIDS, small island developing states. The goal of these projects is to show the many faceted benefits that occur and therefore create an environment within which upscaling can occur.
With the installation of the solar pump, we will now be able to irrigate our crops all year round. We are both farmers on the agricultural side of Chapdawan, and we are very happy with this solar system. This gift will permit us to have our own garden to grow tomatoes, pepper, onion, and other crops, especially in the dry season.
These demonstration projects focus on, number 1, practicability, that they are doable, local relevance, that they provide here and now benefits to people, employment opportunities, because each solar project, whether it is the application or the supply of solar materials, needs people who can put them together and install them and maintain them. All of these lead to a huge number of benefits.
Now, with the new solar system, patient care and staff comfort are much improved. And because of the amount of power being generated, there are big plans to do more.
Under this scheme, 27 countries have submitted their proposal, which are in various stages of implementation. And I would be happy to say that we have already commissioned 7 projects, which is in health sectors like Comoros, Mali, Niger, Togo, Guyana, and Jamaica, which is on both the solarization of health centers as well as solar pumping system.
The resource of having light would actually help what we're trying to do, which is giving the best patient care possible.
We look forward to making a real life change in the lives of people through solar energy.
Thank you. May I now invite Ms. Kanika Chawla from Sustainable Energy for All to make a presentation on clean cooking systems.
Thank you very much to the International Solar Alliance and to the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy for inviting us here today. Oh, the slide, I can see this. Oh, you can see them too. Okay, perfect. My name is Kanika Chawla, and I'm Director and Chief of Staff at Sustainable Energy for All. And for those of you who don't know us very well, we are an international organization that focuses very much on how can we take affirmative action on SDG 7, but also on the deep interlinkages between the delivery of energy and other development priorities. So, which is why this session today it resonates very closely with everything that we believe in, because it isn't just about access to electricity that is minimal to one light bulb and a phone charger, but it's about having a dignified life. It is about having an energy minimum that allows you to also participate more fully in economic activities, but that also enables every single person in a household, regardless of where they are in the world, to be able to have a healthy life and beyond electricity for other end-use sectors. And to the extent that those end-use sectors can be electrified, as we saw in the video just now, that is, of course, then the ideal outcome. So bearing that in mind then, I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about why clean cooking or access to clean cooking continues to be such a large problem, so really a little bit of a diagnostic. And then I want to talk to you about how we can actually merge our twin priorities, where we think about access to electricity and access to clean cooking as two separate things, but in fact how access to electricity could deliver clean cooking. And then finally, I'm going to present to you an approach that we take at SE for All, and that is, of course, one of many approaches, but one that we think works. So bearing that in mind, I think in this group of the converted, it is fair to say that the access to clean cooking continues to pose a very large challenge, and oftentimes overlooked in favor of perhaps thinking only about electricity, but clean cooking is one larger challenge. So really there is more than a quarter, a third of the world's population that does not have access to clean cooking. And the knock-on effects of that are significant, and they are here and now. And they disproportionately affect vulnerable communities, they disproportionately affect women and children, and the price tag, so to speak, of the challenge of the access to cooking is so significant that it really makes the case even more compelling for us to act in haste. But what's even more important is to say that while progress is being made, I think it's a truism, everybody will agree, we need to act on the energy poverty and especially in the cooking space challenge today. But despite that, progress is really slow. And in the last many years, while we have slowly been inching forward, we are going to continue to have a quarter of humanity continue to be in energy poverty, especially in the clean cooking space, even in 2030, which is by when the global community had committed that there would no longer be energy poverty. So it's not just that we will have energy poverty and we would have failed on our global goals, but that it would still be all pervasive. And it would also be inequitable. And this is the part that's so important, especially this week, but more, and it's something that we really welcome, but more and more conversation around a just transition is coming into the mainstream. And there is no justice in the energy transition, especially in the clean cooking space, because what we're finding is while the aggregate number, which is the one that we will often discuss in forums like this, is actually improving, it's not improving fast enough, but it is improving, what is happening is that access to clean cooking in Africa is actually going down. And this is because population is growing faster than the rate at which we are able to provide clean cooking solutions. So even though the global picture may look marginally better year on year, we are still all collectively really failing at what we have committed to doing. So bearing that in mind then, there is a real need for rapid acceleration of progress. And so what a rapid acceleration of progress looks like is actually not going to be a single solution. There's going to be a host of different solutions. And the one that I want to talk about today is the electrification of cooking solutions, but it will have to coexist with a bunch of other clean cooking solutions. And a lot of these will have to be fit for purpose. And so what will work in one country or in one region may not necessarily also exist in another. But what happens when we work with electrification is because you are combining the load and you're kind of raising the demand, you're able to make many more solutions viable economically as well. And the economics is really compelling because if we are, as I said, there is SMAP estimates that suggest that the cost of not acting is so much more than the cost or the investment required if we did act. And which is why then the clean cooking opportunity, especially if you were to combine the access to cooking and the access to electricity opportunity together, the economics become much more compelling. So while there is this kind of general perception that e-cooking is not a solution that can be scaled, it's not economically viable, it requires quite a lot of different interventions, the answer to that is that's actually just false. The economics and the analysis shows you that there are interventions that are required, but those interventions are only to create well-functioning markets, and they're not because those markets would not be viable. So they're more like Kickstarters, and we need those interventions to get the sector going, but once that happens, it is in fact in many ways the least cost solution in many, many markets. So bearing that in mind then, at Sustainable Energy for All, we like to try and take an evidence-based approach to everything that we do. And we also try and do this at a granular level, so at a country level, because every single country has very distinct realities, and those political economy questions must be borne in mind as we're designing solutions. So keeping that in mind, we do what we call the Integrated Energy Access Planning. And the reason we call it the Integrated Energy Access Planning is because often access is thought of as an electricity solution. We're saying clean cooking is a really important part of it, electrification of healthcare centers, cold chains, productive load, including things like solar irrigation pump sets that we just saw in the video are all really important, and we must think about how can these the prosperity of economies, not just the electrification of economies. So bearing that in mind, we do quite granular data analysis, and what this does is it allows you, because there is some spatial data analysis that accompanies this work, it allows you to identify where the gaps are, and where the gaps are is also often where the opportunity is. So if I know with quite high resolution information of where the electrification solution needs to be provided, where the clean cooking electrification solution needs to be provided, I'm able to then say, here is the pipeline of opportunity, and take that to investors. And while the investment opportunity isn't necessarily, you can't walk up to BlackRock and say, here, please go and do this in rural, let's say, Rwanda, there may be an opportunity to say, we actually have someone who's going to underwrite the risk. And because we have this data where we can aggregate and show you the size of the full opportunity in electrification of households, electrification of cooking solutions, and we have the spatial data to go with it, you may be able to get someone who's willing to take a more superior position if there was some subordinate debt or de-risking. And this is really important because this is the approach that we take, which is evidence and then market creation. And market creation is always possible, and if you had the right interventions, it may require some amount of subsidy, it may require other kinds of concessional finance, but it is what will allow these solutions to scale. And this is why we actually already have these integrated energy access plans done for several countries on the African subcontinent. There is the opportunity to do this even at a subnational level, given the in many large countries, the reality varies very much regionally. But it is more important here to just say that there is the opportunity to kind of think about this as a market opportunity, as something that can attract capital so that we can do this at scale, rather than to think about giving access to cleaner cooking fuels almost where it's seen to be charitable or out of the goodness of your heart. And that is deeply problematic, and it's never going to be scaled up. So I want to just quickly conclude by saying that the challenge is large, but the economics work, and there is a way that you can use data, evidence, and market dynamics to make sure that there is progress in this field. And we really don't have a choice. We have to act now. This is really a matter of, for many, many communities around the world, life and death. And no one deserves to grow up with indoor air pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chawla. Now we have a presentation by Dr. Arvind Kumar, Deputy Director General of International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to the organizers for bringing me here and giving an opportunity to bring the agriculture aspect of the solar energy. I'm from ICRISAT, International Crop Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, and we work in the dryland areas of Asia and Africa. Can we have next slide? Can I have the next slide? Can I manage my slide from here? Okay, thank you. So, ICRISAT, just one slide about the institution. We were established in 1972. We are a non-profit, non-political organization, and we are headquartered at Hyderabad, India. But we work across Asia and Africa. In Asia, We work primarily in India, Bangladesh, Nepal, but in Africa we work in several countries, both in WCA. In WCA we work in Mali, Niger, Nigeria. In ESA we work in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and Malawi. And in fact, primarily we work towards the dryland areas. And you know what is the position for the electricity in these dryland areas and also the irrigation. And so evidently, if solar energy has importance in agriculture, probably the most important area to cover is these dryland areas. So next one. So what are the uses of the solar energy in agriculture? In fact, in agriculture, we use solar energy in primary agriculture activities, evidently running the smaller machines that operate the agriculture operations, also in secondary agriculture activities, for example, in processing, in drying, and then also agriculture research functions. There are several gene banks which runs on the solar energy. There are several labs which runs on the solar energy. There are equipments which runs on the solar energy. How the solar energy is helping the farmers, lowering the operational cost, decreasing dependence on fossil fuels, energy efficiency decreasing, environmental effects, and also how it is helping the planet by promoting eco-friendly practices, thereby contributing to more sustainable food production system. But evidently, where we are moving, if we see India, and also if we see Africa, both East and Southern Africa and West and Central Africa, where we have started working in the FPO, FPC, self-help group mode, the importance of solar energy towards the agri-innovation business increases, towards the secondary agriculture increases. And then when we see the electricity, free electricity provision to farmers and the load that government has, then again you see that what could be the importance of the solar energy. Next one. Coming to a little bit of detail where solar energy applications are in agriculture, it is in the solar powered irrigation. We are also using it in the pest control. We are also using it in the greenhouse operations. It is used in the cold storage and refrigeration. Most of you know it. It is also used in food processing. But more important these days, it has moved towards grain and vegetable drying and storage. And in fact, this has added a lot, providing the ability to the farmers in the rural areas to link with the urban areas and also to move towards the export. And this I have seen happening a lot in North India, also in the South India. Then also value-added product manufacturing, as I said, that as we move towards the working with the FPOs and FPCs, this has come up as a very good addition, the solar energy, and distribution and transport. One large aspect use of the solar energy which I see is converting in agriculture waste to wealth, converting all the waste into the organic fertilizer. In fact, and that is where probably we see that there should be a large use. It hasn't picked up the way it should picked up, but I see a lot of potential. Next one. We all know that solar energy, when it came, the solar panels, it started occupying a lot of land. And in fact, at some point of time, we thought that probably we don't have enough land to have all these solar panels. But I have seen the solar energy moving forward over last few years in a dramatic way. And in fact, several options have come up, like agrivoltaic system, where we have the dual use, both for the producing the electricity, but also for going with the agriculture operations. And in fact, it's a win-win situation for us. Also, we have seen some usage of the use of the solar panels along the irrigation canals. And in fact, it's just not require the additional land, but also reduces the water evaporation from the canal. Next one. I do produce two case studies. One is from where ICRISAT has been working. So one is the ICRISAT Gene Bank. And in fact, in ICRISAT Gene Bank, 1 hour flight from here at Hyderabad, where we store somewhere around 130,000 of the germ plasmacetions, it has gone on solar energy. And in fact, it has been there for the last 5 years. And in fact, our grid, this is connected to a grid, and in fact, on which we run the ICRISAT Gene Bank. And so we have gone 75%, we are meeting the 75% of the requirement, even though we are producing more electricity than what is needed by the gene bank. But to maintain it a sustainable way, we said we will use 75% of the solar energy. And in fact, we experienced that in 4.5 years, you meet the whole cost. The saving that you have on the electricity bill, you meet the whole cost of installing the solar system. I put another example, next one. From this is where we entered into the alliance with ISA. And in fact, we wanted to extend further, learning from this, that how we bring the solar power grids to all our facilities in Africa. And in fact, we have started working with ISA, and we have aimed at in ESA, Ethiopia, Malawi, Kenya, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, and in the WCA region, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria. And in fact, you see the ISA member countries in the green. In fact, there was a team from ISA who visited us in Niger, and we have started some discussion on this. Next one. This is my last slide, which is again the case study. And in fact, this is a case study from Karnataka, Dharwad state, where we installed a IMI-designed sustainable SPIS system, which can work very well with the 3 or more farmers. And in fact, this was established in 2018, and which is a 16-panel solar unit. And in fact, it has capacity to lift water from 300 feet. And in fact, it was established with a total cost of 5 lakhs. And in fact, in addition to irrigation, the power generated is also used for powder cutting, flour mill, sugar cane crushing, solar insect trap, and lighting purpose. In fact, we have used this model at several places and in several projects. And we do see this as a viable model for the dryland areas where you don't have regular electricity. Combining solar energy with micro irrigation could be a very viable option for the dryland areas. And we look forward to work with ISA in very close coordination to take this technology to those smallholder farmers working together in the group. Once again, I thank the organizers for bringing ICRISAT here and also personally involving me with this important initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I will now invite the panel to come on the stage. Ms. Suman Chandra, Deputy Secretary, MNRE, Dr. Arvind Kumar, Mr. Hari Natarajan, Program Specialist from UNDP, Mr. Ramesh Patidar, Director, Shakti Pumps, Dr. Rekha Krishner, Partner, WFT Research and Strategic Advisor, Clean Energy Access Network, Dr. Alok Sikka, Country Representative of IWMI, and Dr. Paolo Frankel, who will be moderating the session.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. We are running a little bit late, so I will do my best to make it happen in the right time, which is a challenge for an Italian like me. My name is Paolo Franco. I'm the head of the Renewable Energy Division at the International Energy Agency, and I'm very honored and pleased to be the moderator of this team on solarization of agricultural sector for resilient food supply chain. And I like very much, this is my only comment, the phrasing of resilient food supply chains, because this is much more than just clean cooking. It is more than just agriculture, it's more than water, it's all mixed. And I would like to refer also to the presentation of Kanika Chawla before on these integrated aspects. Now, we have the fortune of having the Deputy Secretary of MNRE, Ms. Suman Chandra. I would like to, from you, to have your first introduction, more in general, to put this in the broader context of what the government of India is doing for sustainable living. Please, the floor is yours for the next 3-4 minutes, if possible.
Thank you. From the Ministry of New and Renewable Energies perspective, in the sphere of agriculture, we have one of the largest scheme in India running for the solarization of agriculture, which is called the PM Kusum scheme. The PM Kusum scheme has 3 components, where under component A, you can set up a solar plant, which can be in consortium with developers and farmers, up to 2 megawatt. Then under the component B, we have this active drive to de-dieselize the agricultural sector, where all the diesel pumps can be converted into the solar-powered pumps. And under component C, we have a target of essentially doing a feeder-level solarization to reduce the agricultural subsidy that burdens the fiscal part of the government of India.
Thank you. How can I also enlarge this? We were impressed very much at the IEA, if I can follow up directly, from the Prime Minister Modi program mission on lifestyle for the environment. And actually the IEA did a small analysis in saying if this was applied globally, this would have enormous impacts in terms of environment and CO2 emissions. Can you maybe elaborate one more minute?
Yeah, I'm happy to also share that during the recently held Bonn conference on climate change, we sort of pushed Mission Life as a non-market approach. And very glad to share that Mission Life is essentially nudging the individuals for environmental action, because we always feel the government is going to do something or the private sector is going to do something, but till the time we do not embed the climate action in people, it doesn't sustain. So the sustainability of climate action via individuals is essentially being done through Mission Life, and we are so glad that it has direct involvement of our Prime Minister to take it forward.
Thank you so much, and congratulations from my side, from the IEA part to the Indian leadership and the government in this. Can I go back to Dr. Kumar? In your very interesting presentation, I picked up 2 things. And I would like to put myself in the devil advocate role, because here we are all converted, so we agree on many things. But when you discuss outside, then usually 2 arguments are made against solar solutions. One is cost. You said these actually lower cost for farmers, and this was also mentioned by Kanika before. Is this really true? How can you elaborate a little bit more on this cost analysis, and then what is the alternatives? And sometimes we also hear the opposition, yeah, but these small systems are not the real energy. We want to have the grid. I'm really deliberately playing the devil advocate here. And the second maybe, well, let's start from this. I have maybe a second question later.
Yeah, look, when we know what are some of the bottleneck with the solar energy, but the agriculture has also moved in a different way. The agriculture for the last 50 years will not be the agriculture for the next 50 years. So agriculture is moving towards working together, working in a FPO mode, in the FPC mode, where the number of farmers are working together, and that there is no other substitute which I see that, especially in India or in Africa, where every farmer has a very small land holding. So keeping those bottlenecks, I think when we work with a group of farmers, then these technologies doesn't remain so costly. When you work with the group of farmers, then the cost of the technology goes down. Also, some of the initiatives that the government of India has, and probably I would say that these kind of initiatives, if we really want to take forward the solar energy, should be taken forward by other countries also. Then it makes a viable solution. And then let's try, means what alternative we have where we don't have electricity, what alternative we have where we don't have capacity to irrigate, what alternative we have where farmers are not able to grow their crops. So we have to bring these alternatives there.
Thank you so much. Now, one essential component of these resistant supply chains is water. We often speak about water, but then the reality is, or let's put it as a question, and this is to Mr. Hari Natarajan of Program Specialist at UNDP. Do the water and energy community actually speak enough to each other? Can you elaborate on this question and maybe introduce in this way the water-energy-food nexus?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Frankel. And thank you also to ISA and MNRE to have us here on this discussion. So that's a very interesting question. So I come from an energy background. So, I want to speak in non-energy terms. And I'd say that, yes, to a large extent, we've approached this as an energy-only problem and rarely ever wind up speaking to the other side, which is really the end user and their needs. And, just to kind of place it in the global context of the challenge that we're facing, we are soon going to be about 10 billion people or so by 2050. And agri-systems need to almost double or even go further in order to meet the needs of those people. And yet, that has to be done in a sustainable manner in an environment where climate change is making it even more difficult in agriculture. And here especially comes the context of water. Again, if you look at it from a farmer perspective, about 90% of the farmers today around the world are small and marginal farmers, and they are following very traditional ways of agriculture, traditional practices in agriculture. So how do we take solutions that we are talking about at our level on energy, which do look expensive upfront, and how do we take them and make them work for this segment, which is going to be a large part of the ones who are going to be affected. And this is where I think I'd like to fall back on what Dr. Arvind was talking about. I think the power of collectivization and taking solutions in a group mechanism, rather than saying that these are assets which are going to be owned by individuals, that these are assets that are going to be owned by collectives, is really the way to go. In any case, if you look at a solar water pumping example, in the Indian context, I think there are some numbers which say that, the pump has to operate for over 200 days for it to be economically viable for the farmer. There is no way that that pump is operating that much if it's operating only for a single farmer, especially small and marginal. And this is where, again, the power of collectivization models to then allow for multiple people to use a single asset to improve its utilization and thereby improve the economics and also take these solutions to those, to those segments are very critical. And of course, I'm still talking only about traditional systems of farming. The next level, which I think Dr. Arvind probably started touching on, was around the whole micro irrigation, looking at technologies like drip, sprinkler irrigation, etc. These have also been around for a long time. And then now there is an additional layer which is coming in, which is through digital innovation, which is talking about data-driven farming. And how do these actually allow us not just to meet SDG 7 by adopting these solutions, but also SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, especially 6.4, which talks about water use efficiencies being improved significantly in order to ensure that we don't face water scarcity at the other end. So there are, I could go on. There are too many dimensions to this, but I'll probably pause here and, if you have any questions.
I'd like just to ask you one more minute, a challenging question. Coming from the energy world, where I see how difficult it is to include in the financial equations the non-energy benefits, how would you do it? This is very interesting what you're saying, but in the end, who is the champion that leads this new integrated thing? Because I have a bit of doubts on the energy field. Can you elaborate 30 seconds?
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, I would fall back on an earlier MNRE secretary's words. You know, he said that MNRE is actually a facilitating ministry. The real customers are the other departments. So here, Ministry of Agriculture is the driver. I'm only offering solutions, and how do I then effectively plug that into their larger context of National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture, Sustainable Farming, Climate Smart Agriculture, Precision Farming. So there are a number of terms that have come out which have different connotations. We need to see how we best plug in there.
Thank you so much. We may come back if we have time, but I doubt. So let's go on maybe a more concrete, not a more concrete, but more on the terrain level. And I wish to give the floor to Mr. Ramesh Patidar, Director of Shakti Pumps. So what is your experience in the concrete everyday challenges in terms of supply, operation, maintenance of solar water pumping systems? Can you elaborate a bit on this very real life?
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, there are some challenges in the remote areas, but I must say these challenges are nothing against the return of investment of the solar pumps. So definitely, still there is a lack of awareness of the people. They are still not aware about the solar energy, so we need to educate them how it is working, how it is beneficial for your life and for your agriculture. There are some higher upfront cost. This is the second challenges. The initial investment is very high for the farmers. The transportation of the material at the remote areas where there is no transportation available. So these are the challenges. Unavailability of the skilled labor at the remote areas. This is the major challenge. Then at the site availability. Sometimes site is shadow free. There is no shadow free sites available. So we need to have the shadow free sites for the proper utilization of the solar energy. Some lack of relevant infrastructure for the after sale service. These are the challenges. Some periodic maintenance to clean the panels. These are the challenges required. And one of the security for the theft and security. These are the challenges is facing in the remote areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And maybe just to, what kind of model are you applying to cover the gap of the higher upfront costs in your practical experience? What is working the better?
We are trying to educate them for against the return of investment. Like we have done so many projects in Africa also. They are using the diesel pumps. So we have done successful pilot projects to replace the diesel pumps with the solar pumps.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now let's, in our rush, let's continue to Dr. Rekha Krishnan, who is partner of WEFT Research and Strategic Advisor at Clean Energy Access Network. Now, how we heard about this ecosystem of looking at the water, energy, and food nexus, and in particular would like to elaborate more these financing aspects. Can you elaborate a bit? We heard the first answer, but I would like also to have your view of how this can be maybe elaborated in a market approach. Who can be the champion of this ecosystem?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for having me here. So on the water, energy, food nexus, which is really the core of what our company does, which is the W, E, and F in WEFT. And, so basically we have to understand that it's not a linear or straightforward linkage. And that is often, and I'm glad that IVMI is here, because one of the first things about solar pumps and the possible negative effects on groundwater tables was flagged by them. And the possible packaging of solar pumps with efficient irrigation was an idea, again, mooted, if I'm not mistaken, at WaveMe. And another thing is the possible, benefits or the complementarities that can also be tapped, again, between water and energy. And, again, an idea that was planted by me, the idea of energy as a crop, which also I think Mr. Arvind's presentation included, where you can actually sell back the excess power from the pumping system. And we saw a case study on that as well. So I think a lot of these nexuses and benefits are tapped if we understand that they are not straightforward and there can be, negative side effects, and we have to map them. And working in isolation is very dangerous, which I think Hari highlighted and you did too. But there are also some models around, say, agrivoltaics, again, which Arvindji had flagged. And I think in agrivoltaics, and this is something when we were working in the Bundelkhand area, which I think would qualify as semi-arid tropics, is that the groundwater table is very low. And then we were discussing with an agronomist, and really we need to get all of these people on board, is to have a height, the solar panels at a height on the farmland, and to grow 3 crops. So potentially we were discussing a root crop, potato, a creeper in the form of peas, and then tomato, which is really the core of that area. It comprises the 3 core food crops of that area. And you have water harvesting channels on the solar panel. And this really, and you have the agro-processing on the side as near farm facilities. So this to me is, the ideal model for an area where you have the W, E, and F all integrated on the farmland. And the farmer benefits enormously. So crop choice, so you need those guys on board. You need the water harvesting people. You need to have, and most importantly for me, for the water energy food nexus to work well, is the whole thing of being rooted locally. A lot of talk happens at the country level, global level, but this is all about that particular block or the district, and because everything changes, the water, the crop planning, the water levels, the soil quality, all of that changes from area to area. Now coming to your point about financing, and I think some discussions we've had with the microfinance institutions, which have a key role. And again, when you're looking at DRE, and I'm here wearing another hat of the Clean Energy Access Network, which is really the industry body for decentralized renewable energy in India. And I want to say that we discussed with MFIs at length about how they can partner with DRE solutions. And the key thing that came out was from the DRE side, the players and the end users, is that a lot of investment has to be made for MFIs to be convinced, and for the end users and the borrowers to be prepared to take this finance. So the whole idea of preparing borrowers for financing is something that was a big lesson. And I think there, intermediaries and aggregators like the FPOs can come in, and while at the broad level you can have green financing, which can make concessional financing possible, we need these aggregators who can take this finance and then pass on, importantly, and I'm taking William's words here, passing on the benefits to the end user is very critical. So some regulations, I don't know who's going to ensure that that passing on happens, but I think that's very important. And therefore, I'm just identifying some key roles where, cooperative banks, microfinance institutions, these are the financing institutions at the local level. And then you have the FPOs who are good to take this money from them and also prepare the borrower to accept and convince them to adopt new technology, the point that Hari also made. That preparedness, and I think Rameshji also made that point, awareness creation, preparing these people, those roles have to be played, and financing can come through that and ensure that the willingness and the ability is there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rekha, for this very, very structured, well-structured answer, and I saw many people nodding here. I need to go immediately to the last speaker before maybe having one more minute to another question. Dr. Alok Sikka, you are country representative of the International Water Management Institute. Can I elaborate a bit more about the business models to promote solar water pumping that in your experience, maybe not just in India but elsewhere, work the best? Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Yes, I mean, before let me begin by thanking the
ISF and the ministry for giving us this opportunity to be over here. And I think we have been talking about the water, energy, food nexus, and that's the area which IMI has been championing for the last 2 decades. And now we look at this development, the speedy development on the solar sector, more also from the water, energy, food lens. And also adding another thing on the climate. So that's the kind of a thing that we look at it in totality. And so whatever we talk about the business models, we know that in this we have 2 kinds of systems, on-grid and off-grid. And the business model for on-grid and off-grids are going to be different. Some of the, there are a number of models which I can talk about, but paucity of the time is there, so I do not know how much I will go into the many models which we are working right now. I'll first share the 2 models which IMI has demonstrated. One is on-grid and one is off-grid. And the one which off-grid it is there in Bihar, where we have amply demonstrated that doing the service provisioning. You have a service providing model through the youth and the entrepreneurs, where you are having a pump with a solar system and with a pipe network, so as to minimize the losses which we are talking about, that, you know, and then creating a very viable water market. Because otherwise they were using the diesel engines, and we are not going to all those mitigation and all those other kind of a things. So that way you are not only just improving on the mitigation, but also enhancing the resilience and the adaptation. So that's the way that we have been looking into. And then of course there are a number of similar such models which are off-grid, which are there in the market, and I can talk about many of them. And the one which of course we have been also working in Bangladesh as a part of our solarizing irrigation out of our SDC supported project in 4 countries, India, Nepal, Bangladesh and Pakistan. Right now I'm the overall lead for that. IDCOL, we are working with IDCOL, that's fee for the service model, where they are the sponsors and they are having a larger panel, like we have got the service provisioning, so they are also doing the service provisioning but a larger scale. So those are the kind of things I think that creates a competitive water markets also. And so that way we also kind of encourage and trying to see that how best you can minimize and use it more efficient use of the groundwater. And again with that, linking with micro irrigation, as I said, the pipe network and many other kind of things that which could be looking. Then another one example of on-grid system I will share with you, which I think quite a few of us are known to that, because IMI has been started working in about 2014-13 on an on-grid system. We created a kind of a mini-grid, where in our Gujarat center we did that, where we have formulated a cooperative of the farmers, started with 6 and then graduated to 9, and had a mini local grid with a transformer, and then evacuating the surplus energy onto the grid. So that was our purpose, what Rekha was telling about, how to see that the groundwater utilization is rather looked into, and that is an incentive, because without any incentive, no natural resource conservation is going to happen. And so that's the way, and if I tell somebody that you conserve the groundwater, nobody is going to listen to me. But if I say that, okay, you evacuate your surplus energy back to the grid, and we will incentivize you for that, that becomes an indirect way of both conserving energy as well as conserving the groundwater. So that's the kind of a model which is rather gone also into the component C of the KUSUM. So I think I have many more other examples to share, but
I'm desolated that we cannot, but can I ask, well, first of all, I'm learning so many things, so thank you so much personally even, but can I ask another question, because you spoke about the incentives, and can I still again put myself in the devil advocate position? What is the best incentive to foster this dual use of agrivoltaics? And can I bring one experience from the advanced economies, which is not very reassuring, where the incentives for PV itself were so high that the farmers stopped doing agriculture. So what is the right combination? Many of you touch this dual use. Does anyone want to elaborate? You have the microphone.
See,
so
the thing
please
is, you see, the agri-PV or the agri-voltaic, because that's one way forward. And in my previous position, when I was Deputy Director General Natural Resource Management with Indian Council of Agriculture Research, we have amply demonstrated in our Central Arid Zone Research Institute where agri-PV is there, because that is one way forward. And not only that, you can use those panels even to harvest rainwater and conserve it. So that way, but again, there also we can come up with some kind of a more innovative idea that you can even link that with, like we have a RESCO kind of a model that with the grid as well, that and do the net metering, so that we say the farmer can use the solar energy as a third crop. Like in India, we take 2 crops, so it becomes a third remunerative crop for the, and those who are the dryland farmers, they are not able to do many other things. So there also it becomes a more remunerative crop for the farmers. So we always say that the solar energy is a third remunerative crop for the farmers.
I like this. Dr. Kumar wanted to intervene.
Yeah, look, everybody thinks of the dual benefit that this agrivoltaic system brings. And there are different models. But what is fascinating is that even though people say that any crop can be grown in this system if we adjust the height and the angle, everything, but it is bringing opportunity to the farmers to grow the more remunerative crop. So what is grown? Vegetables, the tomatoes, the medicinal plants. And in fact, that itself brings to an approach of diversification, moving away from the rice, wheat, maize system. So that is a very, very important, I would say, opportunity for us to capture. But also on the other side, enhances the income of the farmer if they go towards growing these crops. So I see it as a great benefit. So yes, we take 2 crops. Yes, we can harvest water. Yes, we also harvest the electricity. But then you are moving farmers toward diversification and enhancing their income.
A very quick point to add on to that is even beneath the panels, as a part of our innovation fund in Bangladesh, we are doing beneath the panels the poultry and in between the fisheries. So there are a number of ways that one can go on doing the value addition, which is an example of the forward linkage.
Just very short point. Playing the devil's advocate here, I am a little concerned about agri-PV being promoted so aggressively because I don't think there's enough evidence on the impact on agriculture. And in a country like India where 70+% are small and marginal farmers, I'd much rather that urban India takes, or if we talk about the world, the urban-centric world takes the first risk on technologies and doesn't thrust all these untested, unproven solutions on people who least can afford it. So I would at least, for India at least, I would say that it's something that we need to tread with a fair bit of caution, probably at least another 5 to 10 years of understanding how this works before we actually move forward. But I'm happy to be.
There are some different situations we can work.
Can I give the floor to everybody?
I'm very glad that Mr. Natarajan raised that point. And if we have to talk about statistics, there's only 14 gigawatt of agrivoltaic which is installed globally. And definitely there's a potential in the arid and the semi-arid areas to start agrivoltaic experimentation, but it's highly risky to deploy it in the area of major food security crops, and which is where that caution is important. But having said that, probably agrivoltaic is something whose time has come given the competing demand on land that growing population feeding needs as well as housing needs are concerned, and which is why we have to do this co-location of agriculture as well as energy source generation so that we can cater to both the energy needs as well as the food needs. And I don't know, the panel discussion was about the whole agriculture value chain, and I would like 1 minute to sort of, talk about that. We have pre-harvest and post-harvest solar solution, which nobody touched about. And we have a huge deluge of happening in Himachal Pradesh. And I come from Himachal Pradesh, so I'm just dropping this personal anecdote. This is also a season where, apple plucking happens. And this is also a season which coincides with washing away of roads. So there's a huge potential of solar deployment in cold storages, which can sort of improve the shelf life of the product and allow the farmers and the horticulturalists to deploy it at speed and scale, at the convenience of time, where the logistics are right. And which is why we have to look at agriculture as a full farm to plate value chain, and where all the necessary integration of solar is required. Second point, while there is a lot of climate buzz about taking action on energy, we still have institutions which might not be in a position to cater. For example, today, electricity is a concurrent subject, so it takes a lot of time to do the tariff revision. The previous session talked about it, so I'm not going into the details of it. Similarly, land is a state subject, so every state has different land laws and tax laws. While agriculture is not taxable, energy is taxable. So these are the regulatory changes which would require for the actual integrated approach, which Ms. Kanika was also talking about in the previous presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this broader approach. I really appreciate it. Dr. Rekha, yeah, so you wanted to intervene.
I just wanted to, also representing here the Clean Energy Access Network, wanted to highlight that we actually have on the website the India Renewable Energy Appliances Portal, which houses, at least 200 plus, 400 plus products, which are on farm, so pumping solutions and also post-harvest solutions, and others for textiles, etc. A number of rural livelihood solutions. And I would really urge, and I've been told a number of times internationally that these appliances really, and in discussions with Ajay Mathur as well, that these are the solutions that India can take to the world, which is, and thank you Sumanji for bringing this up, that India has this to offer to the world, a range of renewable energy appliances.
Dr. Kumar, and then
I will be very quick to what Dr. Hari Natarajan said. Yes, we agree that probably we have to generate a lot of data, towards the crop and all this. But the general recommendation is that you grow those crops which doesn't need full light. That's one. But even then, we have to generate the data. But my second point of contention is that most of these solar energy panels are not in those areas and the fields which are the high remunerative agriculture field, where it has been we have seen everywhere that it is established on those areas or fields where not so remunerative for the agriculture. But yes, there is no doubt that we have to generate evidence and data, and that's where we don't say that grow wheat, we don't say we grow paddy, don't grow these crops, grow other crops.
So, I am conscious of time and that we need to close. We could discuss this for much longer. I want just to make 2 points. Seen from the experience of the IEA, we see this from the energy side. We will publish soon a report on clean cooking, but here I learned this integrated approach looking at the whole agricultural supply chain, including the post-stream parts, because in the end what really matters is the food security. So thanks a lot for bringing this in this context. And my second thanks is really to India for your leadership. It was said you are offering, probably India is offering solutions for the rest of the world. I would like to congratulate and really thanks in the name of the IEA, and thank you again our ISA friends to involve us in this discussion. Please join me in a big applause to the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May I invite Mr. Ramesh Kumar to deliver the concluding remarks.
Yeah, it has been a wonderful, I would say, starting from 10 o'clock, it was a wonderful discussion. And I think we covered all the dimensions of energy, whether it is electricity, pumping, agriculture. I think all the dimensions which energy and integrated with the food security and all the aspects. I should thank all the panelists in the first session as well as second panel. So before that, let me take this opportunity to thank the dignitaries who were present in the initial session. Of course, they have left now, but I would like to thank them, Ms. Damilola Ogumbi, the Special Envoy of UN Secretary General Office and also AC4all head. Mr. Puneet Kumar Goyal, who is the Chief Secretary of Goa. Honorable Secretary Bhupinder Singh Balla of MNRE. Of course, DG ISA for the plenary session to make it so exciting and wonderful. Thereafter, we had an announcement on the SolarX Challenge, which ISA has carried out, which will, in a way, to promote the entrepreneurship in Africa, and which we would be scaling up further. Thereafter, we have the first session and of mini grids, which we had a wonderful discussion. So I would like to thank Mr. William Brent, Mr. Manoj Kumar Gupta, Dr. Frevot, Mr. Abubakar Ali. He is the national focal point of ISA from Nigeria. He has just left for another meeting. And Mr. Harsh Thakkar from CES. So they had a very good discussion about the mini grids and all the related dimensions. I would thank Mr. Dilim Nigam from MNRE to do this entire moderation of that session. Coming to second session, which has been very, very, again, exciting, and thank you, Kanika, for giving a wonderful presentation on clean cooking, and followed by Dr. Arvind Kumar on, from ICRISAT, the DDG of ICRISAT. They're also very partner to ISA, and this is a very important area where ISA and ICRISAT would be working together. We had again a wonderful discussion, so I would thank Madam Suman Chandra. Thank you very much, Madam, to give the dimensions or the important actions taken in India, which will be useful for other countries as well. Mr. Hari Nadarajan from UNDP, again, UNDP is a very close partner of ISA, and he talked about the agriculture and the pumping system. Ramesh Patidar, thank you for being here, and Shakti Pump has been doing a wonderful job, not only in India, the other countries as well. You are extending to in the African countries as well, so this is a welcome step. Rekha has been very close to ISA. She has been, we have been sharing many platforms, and the energy efficient appliances she talked about, and also the other dimensions of the solar pumping and agriculture you were talking about. Dr. Alok Sikka has been, IWMI has been very closely working with ISA in many countries. We have been working together. So this has been a wonderful occasion. You are here, and you have talked about all the dimensions. Finally, to Paulo Frankel, IEA has been, IEA and ISA, we are having a lot of synergy, and we are working together, and your questions has been very what you call instigating the answers from the people. So that's very important for as a moderator, and so I thank you for giving a wonderful moderation. So without the entire dignitaries or the delegation here, and who have been sitting here and patiently hearing, and without that, this would not have been successful. And so I thank each one of you to have a wonderful presence here, and I think with that we will be closing this session. Before closing, I would also would like to a small moment of appreciation to all the people.
Dr. Alok Sikka. Dr. Rekha Krishnan. Mr. Patidar. Mr. Hari Natarajan. And Dr. Arvind Kumar. Ms. Suman Chandra. And Dr. Paolo Franco. And to Kanika as well, sir. Thank you. Please join us for lunch. The next session in this hall is by CEW and SCCI on role of decentralized renewable energy in SDGs.